And now, an Envision Financial podcast with Luke Smith on Canberra's 2CC.
Joining me in the studio, as he does every Friday afternoon, Luke Smith from Envision Financial. Good afternoon.
Mate, good to have you back.
Thank you very much. And here we are today to talk about a very simple, but at the same time complicated question. And that question is this. How much money do I actually need to retire? Now, it seems like a simple question, but people do tend to make it complicated, don't they?
Look, this is probably one of the most difficult things people have to nail down as part of that retirement conversation. And I sort of laugh tongue-in-cheek, and it's funny because everyone comes in and goes, what does everyone else do? And I say, who cares? Because you need to worry about what you need. Have you got any idea what it costs to run your house? No. Have you thought about where your money goes? Not really. Oh. Do you think you can actually save part of your remuneration to something that you could tell me it goes towards? They're the sorts of answers that I get. And I think today I just want to illustrate to people that there are so many different ways to cut this up that you can't get hung up on a number. And I also want to stress that you don't necessarily need to plan for an amount of money forever. Because for all of the people that I look after, 75 plus, they're not going overseas 3 times a year because their back, their knees, and the magnitude of specialists that they are consulting limit the amount of time that they have to travel and go and do things. So I think people need to take stock of what are your fixed costs. So you'd sit down and say cars, water, electricity, etc., 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 regos, land tax, da-da-da. And generally speaking, you could allocate $10,000 a year to fixed reoccurring costs. Then we take it to the next level and say, okay, well, what do we need to eat? We need to do some other stuff. Do you have any debt to service? There's your next layer of consultation in relation to what are we going to need. Now, if you can pay your house off and have no debt that you need to service, have some positively geared rental properties, bolster your super and have things that generate additional income. We're always looking at the resources that we have, not just a house, not just super, not just, money in a family trust or an inheritance or whatever it may be. I would also throw in there as a resource, I'd throw in working, because your ability to work is a wonderfully, wonderfully powerful way to get to a number and provide some peace of mind about something that I find a lot of people are concerned about. Because when you think about turning off that income tap, knowing where your money's coming from for me is the most important part of this conversation, not the rate of return, because you can be in an industry fund and get an 8% return. You can be in a personal super fund or a self-managed super fund and get an 8% return, and they're generated very, very differently. An industry fund gives you no dividends. You have no control over franking credits, and you get what you get. A personal super fund or a self-managed super fund that is invested in a diversified portfolio of assets generates dividends, like rent from a house. You get income that you have greater control over. You can benefit from the use of franking credits. And I find there's a huge amount of peace of mind in where your return is coming from. Because if you need to take 5% out of your super balance and you're generating 4 of that 5% with income and franking credits, it takes a lot of pressure off the longevity of your capital. So understand what you need. Start with fixed costs. Start with the ancillary costs that may be of a more ad hoc nature, and then come backwards and say, all right, what do we have to eat and all of the other mandatories to get you to this is what I need to live on. Now, the FPA, or Financial Planning Association, says that a couple can have a comfortable retirement on $73,875. Now, I don't know who comes up with that, and I don't know the source of that data, and I don't know the lengths with which they interrogate what that comprises. But a single comfortable retirement is $52,000. So that's 5% out of $1 million in super, if you think about it like that. So that's why I stress, as part of your retirement, don't be against considering some part-time work, because if we continue that 5% scenario, if you could work part-time 1 or 2 days a week and earn 25 grand, especially if you earn 25 grand between you as a couple, that's the equivalent of having another $500,000 in super and taking 5% pension. So when you think about it like that, a little bit of part-time work is not only wonderful from a social perspective, it's wonderful from a brain perspective because you're still switched on, you're still thinking, you have some purpose, you have some engagement, but you also have $25,000 that you're not going to pay any tax on between you, which is like having another $500,000 in super, which can then help alleviate that question I always get is it how long is it going to last and will it run out? Now, when it comes to funding your lifestyle, there's a few different ways to come at that. Because as parents, we do a lot of what we do for our kids. And as parents, primary objective is to sort of raise these kids into normal functioning adults, but then also have the capacity to be able to leave them something and help them out. So my general rule of thumb is this. If you can take 5% of your balance, whatever your accumulated asset base is, if you can take 5% of your balance and meet your living costs, a diversified portfolio with, say, 70% growth assets and 30% defensive, on average would generate a return of about 7%. Now, in some years it'll be a lot more than that. During something like COVID, it may be a little bit less, but if you took 7 as an average, if you're taking 5, the value of your money will continue to go up against inflation. If you took 7% and earned 7%, the value of your super will go sideways. And you will still have a significant asset base to potentially leave the kids. Now, we come into we'd love to travel, Luke. We'd love to go overseas. No problems. Take your 7%, throw in another $30,000 a year, okay, or 3% of your capital base on pure travel. You're going to have 30 plus years of money from 60. Now at 90 something, are you worried about your super balance? I'd argue you're probably not. I'd also argue you're probably not going overseas 3 times a week at 90 either. I generally find people do a lot of their travel and bucket list stuff, and I'm a massive advocate of, right, you're done at 60, let's go hell for leather to mid-70s because you're healthy, you're fit, you're interested, and by mid-70s I find a lot of people have been everywhere they want to be, seen everything they want to see, and they can still get travel insurance without it costing the earth. Because from mid-70s onwards, going to certain countries just isn't possible because of the medical implications and the insurance implications of doing so. So if you focus your attention on that 15-year window from 60 to 75 within reason and worked on a 7% access rate from your accumulated assets, I think 99% of people, provided they've been diligent over their working life, will be just fine. And if you do need another 3%, okay, you're still going to have lots of money at the end of the day because you're not going to deplete your superannuation over that time frame with any real significance. Because in some years, like the last 12 months or at the moment, portfolios at the moment knocking out 12.5%. There are the years where you then strategically realise capital when things are at record levels, prepay some holidays or put next year's travel in the cash account of your pension and know that no matter what happens with markets, regardless of what anyone says or does, you've got the money for next year's travel. So I find people get a lot of peace of mind operating like that, and I think they just need to keep in mind that your super will last a lot longer than you realise, and if you haven't amassed enough to live the way you want to live, don't be against a little bit of part-time work, because I actually find that most people really enjoy what they've done in their life from an occupational perspective. They just don't want to do it 50, 60, 70 hours a week. But they're more than happy to say, all right, if I've got another $25,000 between us, I'm happy to do a day or two here and my wife will do a day or two there. And I find 5 days a week to do some social stuff, plenty of time, because COVID taught us that staying home doing nothing's actually not that exciting. and you generally need some reasons to get out of the house. So don't be against a little bit of work if you have specific things coming up, because you can build that into your broader cash flow. But I think the big takeout here is work out what you need as a couple or you need as an individual, and then work backwards at 5%. If that doesn't work, work backwards at 7% of your capital. And generally speaking, I find that that is more than enough to be able to meet all of your fixed costs and day-to-day stuff. And then your ancillary travel and discretionary can be on top, and your superannuation will still last for a good 20 plus years. And that doesn't even take into account assistance from Centrelink, which would increase over time as your capital base fell. I'm just talking about invested money in your super. So Centrelink would be like a backup plan, because that is a wonderfully generous system that is there to assist you later in life. And I think that's one thing I want to clear up as well. I've had a lot of people come in this week and go, well, I'm going to retire because it's 67. No. Centrelink eligibility starts at 67. A condition of release to access your super is available from 60. But I find a lot of people jam the two together or don't differentiate what they represent. So Centrelink at 67, access to super from 60. Don't muddy the two up, because you may be voluntarily working for 7 more years than you need to.
Luke, what are the key things people can do to actually hit their retirement goals and maximise their enjoyment of retirement?
Yeah, so I think the first port of call when you're trying to measure these things is have an understanding of where your money's going now, because your cash flow generally changes. Because when people actually break down the going outs, and I don't mean to restaurants, but
the outgoings.
The outgoings,
yes. Yep. It's been a long week, right?
It's been a real long week. There are a number of things that are associated with going to work.
Yeah.
Parking costs, dry cleaning costs, food, eating out, coffees, those general things that we do to get through the week, that will die off. But also then understand what your fixed costs are. Have a general understanding of that. Are we keeping 2 cars? Are we going to 1 car? Those sorts of differences can be very valuable from an annual cash flow perspective. Work out roughly what your discretionary spending is. So you're going to have your known fixed costs, might be 10 or 12 grand. You might then have your ongoing must-haves. So things in there would be food, fuel, all of those things associated with your day-to-day living. And then on the end, we have discretionary spending, travelling, and things that you want to do. So if you can save with some consequence while you're working, work on a general basis of, can I get what I need out of 5% from my total asset base? If you can't, test the water at 7. I generally find a 7% drawing ensures longevity of capital when it comes to what's invested, but also then a really nice income stream that can meet what you need. And don't be against a little bit of part-time work, not just for the cash, because as we said before the ad break, $25,000 of part-time work, not hard to do, but very valuable from a longevity perspective, because that's effectively like another 500,000 in super at 5%. So it's really, really powerful, because the one concern I find a lot of retirees have is, well, how long is it going to last? And then the $60 million question, can I afford it? And generally speaking, they can, but it's understanding the value of your resources and how your return is generated. So use a fund that allows you to control dividends, use a super fund that allows you to control franking credits, maintain a suitable asset allocation. I don't believe that as you get older, you need to be more conservative, because it's a time of life, as we just discussed, where you need certainty around income and you need growth to offset inflation. Know what you want to do and when you want to do it. And if you want to stack or front load from retirement the first 5, 6 or 7 years, great, do it. Do it while you're healthy. Don't be the person in a retirement home saying, I wish I'd known, I wish I'd done it, I wish I'd seen it, I wish I'd swum with them, I wish I'd tackled that, I wish that had burnt me, or whatever other exciting things you want to do on a trip somewhere. Because if you've spent 30, 40, 50 years working, you deserve the control and the peace of mind to be able to do some things that may be on your bucket list. So don't die with the most money in super. Don't work to get the highest pension if you're in a defined benefit scheme, think about the value of your time, because it's the one thing that we can't recoup. Just about anything else is fixable. And I think if you come at it with that approach, you can go into retirement with clarity and confidence.
So, Luke, where can listeners get more information?
Yeah, office number 62604749. We've got envisionfinancial.com.au on the internet. We've got the podcast, The Strategy Stacker. Luke Talks Money on iTunes and Spotify. We've got Envision Financial Canberra on YouTube, where you can get a backlog of all of our shows on various topics. And all of these types of considerations are in Smart Money Strategy, your ultimate guide to financial planning in all good, bad and online bookstores.
Luke, thanks very much. We'll catch you next week.
See you next week.
Luke Smith from Envision Financial.